Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I'm in a little Airbnb in Amsterdam. Outside is a very tempestuous winter storm. I'm delighted to be able to welcome you to our monthly community call, where every month we come together to celebrate our presence and our exploration of the sacred feminine in Chartres, in France. The video you just saw reminds us of the majesty of the cathedral dedicated to the Black Madonna and Notre Dame. No cathedral anywhere in the world celebrates, adores, and reverences the divine feminine as deeply as Chartres. That's why Joseph Campbell called the cathedral the womb of the world. This month we are commemorating and celebrating the rising of women and the feminine around the world. We are going to be delving into that thematic in August when we gather for Madonna Rising and our journey as a pilgrimage to the sites associated with Mary Magdalene. So we have some of the great women of our Chartres community to speak with us today. And we are particularly graced to have Jean Houston. Those of you who've been coming to our Chartres events, where each year we study one of the ancient liberal arts that were fashioned by Pythagoras and Plato and Aristotle. Jean has come twice, each time for the third liberal art, which is called rhetorica, about the power of the word, of oratory, in service of the heart, in service of ethics, in service of the true and the good and the beautiful. Many things can be said about Jean, but I think probably, and to my mind, if you had to pick a godmother of the human potential movement, which emerged into the world community in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, it would be Jean. As part of that foundational impulse, it was really Jean who called in the labyrinth in Chartres as a symbolic icon of everything that we in our generation are challenged to do, to move from our individual lives into the sacred center and emerge transformed. So Jean, I want to welcome you. I want to thank you for everything you've done on behalf of all of us for many, many years. And we all look forward to what you're going to now speak to in terms of the rising of the feminine.
Thank you so much, Jim. And it's wonderful to be back in the Chartres community, which is where I think the world sort of begins again. I must say that I am really embarrassed to be here. I am a very poor acolyte of the Madonna, but I feel so honored to join these amazing women of spirit and wisdom and bearing. And by the way, I just reread and your magnificent Dream of the Cosmos for the third time. And Banafsheh, Sayyad, and of course, my dearest friend and co-worker of these 34 years, Peggy Rubin. And two, I heard the voice of Ruth Cunningham in the background, whose devotion to this Madonna carries the deep sweetness of the heavenly spheres. Now, being the daughter of a comedy writer, my father, among other things, wrote the joke, "Who's on first?" I'll begin with a funny story of my conversation with a group of Italian women, Milanese actually, at the great cathedral in Milan. I walked into that cathedral and nobody was there, maybe 8 women, older women, vecchie signori. And I was surprised to see that not one of them was kneeling at the pictures of the statues of Jesus. They were all kneeling or praying in front of the Madonna. So I asked one of the women, I said, "Signore, why is it that the ladies here, nobody's worshiping Jesus Christ, just the Madonna?" You said, everything begins with A. Because we all know, and I'll say it in Italian, "Gesù Cristo ossa pigre," roughly translated, Jesus Christ is lazy bones. And I said, "But why the Madonna?" Everybody knows the Madonna does all of the work. Well, with such devotion to her guidance and active work and help through so many centuries, is it any wonder then that Pope Pius XII in 1950, at the demand of thousands of petitioners from all over the world, he said, "We pronounce, declare, and define it to be divinely revealed dogma that the Immaculate Mother of God, the ever-Virgin Mary, having completed the course of her earthly life, was assumed body and soul to heavenly glory." Now you see what this means? She was moved from angel to archetype to one who guides reality itself. So August 15th became the feast day of the Assumption, a sacred time, especially in Chartres, with its cathedral devoted to many aspects of the divine feminine, to celebrate rising women in a rising world. Now, for all of my life, all of my working life anyway, I've said that among the changes that are required of us in this time, the one that matters most for the survival of the human race is the rise of women to full partnership with men in the whole domain of human affairs. This is the greatest change demanded of us in 5,000 years. And as we've seen, it's not easy. And there's a fierce backlash because the fear that has arisen is power-based. Our discoveries are twofold. One, few people with the trappings of power are ready to surrender it easily. Second, none of us, neither the men nor the women, have been trained in the skills of authentic leadership, what I call social artistry, for these complex and terrifying times. Confusion, uncertainty, retreat into fundamentalist beliefs, reprisals, paralyzing fears that have been daily fare, the real estate of our minds being filled with trauma. Now, most recently, my studies and personal devotion has been to look at the universe, the quantum universe, whose essential nature is consciousness itself. I look there for the physical and the psychological clues about how to live a more useful, effective, and meaningful life. In other words, what is daily life in the quantum universe? What is it about? How does it work? Now, most of the mystical form of the world's religions speak of their revelation of the universe as a unified, interpenetrating whole that is sustained and nourished by the vitality of the life force. I mean, indigenous people, what do all over the world? They declare that an animating wind or life force blows through all the things in the world, and there is aliveness and sacred power everywhere. A major stream in Western thought portrays the universe as a single living creature that is being continuously regenerated and is evolving toward higher levels of complexity and consciousness. Now, despite our diversity, when the world's wisdom traditions have penetrated into the experiential depths, a common reality is encountered that is utterly stunning. And that is, we live within a living universe that arises moment by moment as a unified whole. The universe is a living entity that is continuously sustained by the flow through of phenomenal amounts of energy in an unutterably vast and intensely alive process of awesome precision and power. The unity of existence is not an experience to be created. Rather, it is an always manifesting condition waiting to be appreciated and welcomed into awareness. Now, what emerges from this potent and evocative take on the nature of reality? And to the topic of my reflections today, what does this say to the relevance of this perspective to the emergence of a necessary and evocative form of more feminine quantum spirituality? And what to my wondering eyes should appear but a realization that this is a mothering universe. Why? Because she is generative, endlessly fertile. She knows that everything is profoundly interconnected, interwoven, seamless. She is interested more in process than in product. She is artful. She is outrageous, dangerous, thrilling, infinitely mysterious, radiant. Not only does she transform her creations consistently, but also is willing to undergo transformation herself every fraction of a nanosecond. In fact, it's been determined that the universe turns off and on every 1 to the minus 43rd seconds. That's pretty fast. These are all, in some way, attributes of thousands of accounts in the goddess cosmologies and mythologies from all over the world, profoundly feminine, profoundly alive. Oh, but friends, there's something else flowing from the largesse of her mind and heart. And as I say, found most recently in quantum physics. And what emerges, as I hope to shortly demonstrate, is a very feminine form of scientific investigation, including some experiments in space and time. Healing, entering the various different domains of existence. It is one that gives us perspective on the nature of reality and the nature of consciousness that could very well affect our agenda in science, mythology, theology, philosophy, psychology, and the entire spectrum of our human condition. My friends, I believe it could even provide the basis for a renaissance, rinascita, Italian, a renaissance of self and society, a revolution in human possibilities beyond technological enhancements. So what does this sacred feminine approach to the nature of reality have to say? Now we know that the quantum universe has an outer body and an inner mind. The infrastructure of your mind mirrors these deeper quantum structures of the universe. In different states of consciousness, we can be brought to subtle levels of the mind that expand to certain states of interacting with the universe herself, in what the Buddhists call interdependent co-arising. Interdependent co-arising. Now, what are the states? Many of you have practiced them: prayer, meditation, contemplation, rapture, ecstasy, loving, trance, high creativity, and other varieties of different states of consciousness. In these, one can gain access to the dynamic levels of mind that have an unbounded field of awareness of the universal field of consciousness herself. So the local self, within its own unbounded nature, in some sense, is identical to quantum mind, and therefore has many, many, many more capacities than those operating in local consciousness. The deepest values, the deepest purposes, the deepest patterns for life, the richest potential codings for existence are available. And within the level of creative patterns, not unlike what Plato referred to as the eidos, the divine forms, the place where imagination itself meets the imaginal depths, where one finds that great ideas, innovative actions become manifest. Now we have seen that these prayers, meditators, mystics, high creative persons more readily seem to see these cosmic connections, these potential entry points into the cosmos, and they return full of potential and creative ideas, in some cases way beyond where they would ordinarily exist in their given point in space and time. Think Hildegard of Bingen, who out of these states came to music that was several hundred years ahead of her time. Think Julian of Norwich, think Teresa of Avila, think Mother Teresa, think Joanna Macy, think my old friend, of whom I have a painting, Margaret Mead. Let me see if I get her up there. Yeah, there she is, Margaret. Good. Well, now, when we think of these people, we know that they are known to, how do we describe it? Drop in an intent or a flavor that sets up reverberations which then come into the form of things intended, because they're working out of a quantum field of consciousness, which often is perceived as revelations from a higher source, or cosmic consciousness, or divine consciousness. Now, the extraordinary part is that when we are able to bring local consciousness to a higher resonance in the quantum field, we access news from the universe. In this state, all knowing is direct knowing, and all systems are go. Now, we know that mystics often experience a timeless, spaceless, simultaneously polydimensional reality, because they've entered into states of consciousness in which they are not held back by ego, needs, expectations. Thus, the mystic, the high creative, the one given to the practice of deeper states of consciousness, has at her command the selection for whatever reality she chooses from the myriad ones that she perceives. Her mind enters into union with the great matrix mother consciousness that transcends all space-time categories and includes them all, as well as all of the worlds. Now, in these states, we are engaging in a beyond space-time realm that is consonant with our deep mind or creative unconscious, from which everything arises. Now, this is ultimately a spiritual experience and a cosmic connection, a quantum connection, and it is all part of the great hologram, which may be reality itself, every part entangled with every other and working together, which is profoundly women's ways of knowing and relating. You discover in these states that the universe is tremendously populated, not just with beings like or unlike ourselves, but with archetypes, patterns, persona of meaning. Archetypes are organs of essence that can be extremely helpful. They can become your companions on the journey of life. I mean, just briefly, my own story. I started getting companioned with an archetype when I was very young. And the archetype happened to be what is known as the Athena archetype, also known in other cultures or related as Saraswati, sometimes as Bridget. She's the one who puts you to work. And she is one, particularly in the Athena mode, who helps cultures deepen themselves. She's a goddess of civilization. Well, when you get companioned with an archetype, things happen, you go to work. And to date, since 1958, I've worked in, 109 countries, helping cultures to deepen, to survive, and also to be part of the larger unity. You go to work if you're companioned by an archetype. How do you get in touch with an archetype? That's another subject altogether, but it has to do with following certain structures within the self that seem to require a larger statement and availability of yourself to a larger service. And then often it comes in as archetypal. Now, quantum physics has discovered something that many spiritual seekers have long known, and which women generally have always known, that our perception of the universe evokes the very universe that is observed. If we change the way we view the universe itself spontaneously reflects this change back to us, because the universe is not separate from our perception of it. This means that our creative imagination is truly divine, and that it literally affects the very blueprint of reality. Our divine creative imagination is part of us through which the feminine face of God, also known as the cosmic consciousness, imagines this world into being. So, what does this all mean? It appears that we live in a quantum universe of open-ended potential at each and every moment. We are partners in what is getting dreamed up. How our universe manifests depends on how we both individually and collectively choose to experience it. The real power then is in the viewing, how we decide to experience the universe. Similarly, quantum physics points out it makes no sense whatsoever to talk about the universe as if it exists objectively and separate from us, or to talk about us existing independently of the seemingly outer universe. The universe and we are inseparable partners in a timeless embrace. Timeless embrace. We are collaboratively dreaming up the universe while the universe is spontaneously and simultaneously dreaming us up. Again, this is what Buddhists call interdependent co-arising. What a game. But within this game lies the paradox of being human. Here we are, we local beings living in a biodegradable space-time suit that allows us to persist for a number of years doing our individual, human, local-based things. But we are also non-local, infinite beings with quantum powers and possibilities that give us the chance to live in a universe larger than our aspiration and more fascinating than our dreams. And in this time of such challenge, when because of the avalanche in avarice and ignorance, the human experiment could come to an end within the next 2 centuries or even decades. The wonder is that principles and knowledge have risen from science, from cosmology, from the great discoveries and experiences of the intrepid explorers of the nature of consciousness and of spiritual reality that is the ground for our new existence. So together, beginning in the late years of the 19th century and the early years of the 20th century, there has been coming together three phenomenal happenings, almost simultaneously. The harvest of the wisdom of the world's traditions, the revolution in physics that brought us the quantum nature of reality, and the rise of women all over the world. And what results from these three? The future of reality, which is the evolution of our own consciousness and the movement from separation to unity, from fragmented mind to whole mind, from thought, which is in time, to awareness, which is not in time. Now, I've been working with these concepts, both spiritual and scientific, in a form that might be considered a more feminine form of science, in such a way as to enable my students to be, to do, to create in ways that are suggestive of much higher levels of human accomplishment. My work and experiments in this regard have been carried out with hundreds of students and demonstrate the techniques of working with this phenomena. I might begin, for example, with the concept of discovering how they can come into resonance with their eidos, the divine idea of themselves, their quantum blueprint, the higher template of who they are in the fullest expression of themselves, and realizing that they are truly not now nor ever have been alone. They will know that they are living in partnership with the universe herself. And as I continuously remind my students, you are in the universe and the universe is in you. So let me give you a little exercise, and you're free to do it now with me. So I might tell them, okay, here's the exercise. Let us now explore the art of living in an expanded self, an enchanted state, which gives us access to the latent physical capacities or higher states of body functioning, for health, for well-being, and also of mind states that enlighten us as we reach the psychological states where we can consciously orchestrate our moods and emotions, our relationships, and the vast party of all the different and brilliant personalities and their skills that we have within us. We are not encapsulated bags of skin dragging around a dreary little ego. There's so much more to us. And so I would say again, be very present in your body right now as I speak to you. Please know that your body is the stuff of stars and of the minerals of the earth. Your blood runs briny with the seas. The essence of oceans spills through your veins and arteries. And the sediments of earth make up your cells. Your genes, your genes are universes in themselves, coded with enough information to recreate the world. So perhaps then it is these elements of earth and sky, of nature and cosmos, that actually compose your physical being, the inner mirror of the great nature that has pushed us to the choice point we now face. And it all has purpose, even a destiny. You are, my friend, the apex of the 13.8 billion year evolutionary process that has resulted in you and your life. Well, I might then evoke a sense of moving into their quantum blueprint. Your responsibility is to reconnect with this inner nature, this emergent evolutionary nature, this optimal template, this quantum blueprint that has been waiting for you to recognize it and be filled by it. It is here now, the quantum blueprint, looking for you, waiting for you. Come closer, you say. And it does. For each of you, its appearance will be unique. You may feel it as light, as joy, as something that is filled with the codes for your higher nature. It has been waiting for you to sense it, recognize it for most of your life, and perhaps for millennia before that, since that first cosmic seed began to bloom. And now the moment has come, the moment has come. Move towards it as the quantum blueprint moves towards you. Feel yourself connecting with its energy, its wondrous plans for you as you move into the blueprint of your quantum nature, your larger self. Connecting now with this energy and the plan for your larger life. As the optimal template moves in you, know that you're becoming a superb catalyst, a carrier of new genesis as the world is getting ready to move. Your mind is growing so you can think in many ways, in words and images, thought waves that border on genius. Much that may have been lost in you from your childhood and adolescence, as well as those remarkable skills and qualities that were latent in you, are now becoming real. Courage, passion for the possible, rigor, diligence, a wave tide of joy and belief, the creative worlds. The creative worlds are moving in you now. Oh, friends, I want you to know this. I want you to feel this. And above all, oh, friends, I want you to be this. Your spirit, inspirited by cosmic consciousness, the supreme beloved who calls you into being. You are loved, nurtured, empowered, called forth to your higher destiny for this life and this time. Now, friends, given this initial entrance into the quantum blueprint, you can then have the sensibility and openness to life in the quantum universe. And a good place to begin is with a new experience of time. Now, as human beings, we are multi-temporal by nature. And to explore the mystery of time within you is to gain access to a universe larger than your aspiration, more complex than all your dreams. Now, here is a process that I've created to have you move beyond your usual time habits and frame of mind, but an inner state that gives you much more fluid categories of space and time that operate, frankly, in the depths of your psyche. I call it an alternate temporal process. And in this basic training process, you are able to experience subjective time, in which a short amount of clock time, say 2 minutes, is felt to be much longer. And one is able to take a trip around the world. And with a few more minutes, experience adventures, write books, finish projects, go voyaging in the seas of the unconscious, even learn or rehearse things that would normally take a much longer time to do. This works. It's the only way I get through all my work, is I have to enter into an alternate temporal and give myself 5 minutes of clock time equals subjectively to really make this plan that certain United Nations agency is asking me to create in a very short period of time. Otherwise, I couldn't do these things. I could not do these things. Here's a minute of clock time equals subjectively all the time you need to take a trip around the world. Try that one. You begin to do other things for rehearsing things, for planning. Use an egg timer. 2 minutes of clock time equal to much longer time to do things. Quantum physicists are saying that time itself is simultaneous. Time past, time present, time future is simultaneous. So I will also do exercises in time where we will be able to go back in time, often fairly early in time, where something happened, not a big trauma, but a disappointment. And we go through what I call the curtains of time. We part them, we walk through it. And we go to that incident where, let's say it's a simple one, someone that happened recently, where a woman complained to me that as a child, she wanted to draw, and she was in her class in third grade, and the teacher went by and looked at her and said, "Oh, that's terrible, Mary. You have absolutely no talent at all. Go and read." Boom, came crashing down. So what we did is we changed the story. She changed the story. So the teacher, quite different this time, would look down and said, "Oh, Mary, that is wonderful. A house that looks like a fat person. That is so creative. Keep at it, dear. You have so much talent." Well, after doing that, she got very vitalized about knowing herself as an artist. And within 2 years, she even had her own gallery show. And we do this all the time. It's so simple. It's a lot of these impossible things, given the nature of what we know about the universe, are really remarkably simple. Now, if time is simultaneous, that means it's not only time past and present, future, simultaneous, but it's also the patterning with the universe's help, and hopefully with your archetypal friends, pattern in your future. The other thing is that we are ubiquitous. We live, according to quantum physics, there are many variations of ourselves throughout the universe, parallel worlds. And one thing as I do, I send people to visit other aspects of themselves in a parallel world, since that is now considered to be appropriate science. I mean, what is appropriate is the parallel worlds, not what I do. And so a person may have, as our friend Jennifer had, a terrible case of Lyme tick disease. Nothing regular was working. She went there and she met who she called Jennifer 4. And Jennifer 4 was bursting with exuberant health. And I had them stand together, maybe just a little bit apart, and she began to feel the sheer abundance of healthy energy flowing into her. And the Jennifer 4 said, "I really need some capacities in speaking in public. Can you help me?" And Jennifer 1 said, "I can, because it's something I do very well." And there was a transfer. Well, I've done this so many times. But the fact is that given the ubiquity of ourselves throughout the universe, we in fact do have access to what we think of as either parallel selves or parallel worlds. So, of all the attributes and possibilities, which is the most important? And I was part of the creation of life on this earth, and that is love. What I have somewhat missed in the all-important women's movement in the last years has been spiritual aliveness, spiritual vigor, and spiritual passion, what I call spiritual eros. This, of course, can be based on new understandings or teachings from the ancient writings, for Christian, of course, the Nag Hammadi texts and the Qumran documents. For those who have felt the tides of learning and yearning from other wisdom traditions, Buddhist, Sufi, Goddess, as well as the earth-based indigenous traditions, and caught the fire coming from women, poets, artists, and warriors, that tide of spiritual eros is what I truly believe will help us now. It's why I once wrote a book called The Search for the Beloved. Because when you find the spiritual beloved, all kinds of things wake up in us. Among it, the capacity to build resilience, to bring authentic feminine potency into the mainstream and not as a second-rate man. And most important, freeing men to acknowledge the divine feminine aspects of their souls that the world is calling for now. And that's just the outer world. The work of Ubiquity's Wisdom School at Chartres also focuses on the inner journey, that union of the internal masculine and feminine, the anima and animus, through practice, contemplation, celebration, profound teaching by the holders of this mystical mastery. And that union of energy desperately needed today when the world is so rife with dopes, angry, divisive dopes, violent opposition. Jung himself is said to have declared that anima animus inner work is quite difficult. And I believe that some of that difficulty rises from a lack of recognition or the conscious discovery of the third element, which is beingness, male, yes, female, and the all-embracing numinous, the basis for the whole consciousness of the universe. This numinous quality, profoundly internal and external, is best seen and experienced today in the rise of the divine feminine. The labyrinth is an example. She is the way in, she's the way out, and she is in the center, especially potent at Chartres, where she can be felt as a rising tide of spirit moving through the world and designed to bring about a new axial age, not just a time when a group of great guys taught great thoughts, but rather an age of spiritual partnership with ourselves, with the sacred earth, and with the holy cosmos, the new Trinity. I'd like to close with an evocation that I wrote, which I call Cosmic Mother Comes Calling. Here she comes, the Aleph herself, quantum lady wearing a garment of holograms, universes couched in the crook of her elbow. Stars and galaxies sparkle in her hair, as do diadems of dimensions, planets beyond counting, and beings by the trillions. Time does not count by her measure, nor does space, nor separation. She is the ever-expressing, ever-creating mystery, the womb of all becoming. Imagine immensities and you still can't grasp her. Look at a flower, you understand her completely. She is all, and she is no thing. She is the cosmic mother, the one in the many and the many in the one on our planet and perhaps on many others. We call her by many names, many variants of herself. Athena, consciousness, the absolute, Hera, Demeter, the quantum field, the Akashic recorder, Mary, Isis, the great mother, Spider Woman, Corn Mother, Amaterasu, the mind that is minding, Queen of Heaven, great goddess, life force, creation, Kuan Yin, and above all, Mother, Mother, Mother. She comes now, looking for you. Thank you.
Bravo, 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 Jean. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You presented what we will absolutely enter into when we are going to Chartres in August to experience the mother in her fullness, where she will guide each and every one of us into our greater self, into our larger self, in ways that we are inspired. In Chartres, we have so many representations of the divine feminine, and each and every one of us who comes there and joins this community in August feels that there's so many different archetypes and different aspects of the divine feminine that helps them emulate their way into their greater self. And I love how you relate the quantum field as the field of the divine feminine. It is. And when we dance and when we sing and when we do the sacred theater with Peggy, what we're doing is we're stepping out of that local habitual self into what for us could be the greater, opening ourselves for grace to just pour through us and step into what we're being asked to step up for. So I'm very excited with all that you've said. I feel like you actually showed exactly what we will be doing in Chartres. So maybe you will join us. It would be fabulous. Thank you so much, Jean. I want to call upon the other faculty of Madonna Rising. Anne Baring will be with us virtually. So I would like to hear from Anne if she has observations. which she would like to share with us. And here, can we have Anne Bering?
Well, we can hear her. Anne, do you want to turn on your video?
Yeah, I'm trying to see where it is.
Yes, we see you.
Can you see me now? Yeah, there we are. Well, Jean is always extraordinary because she opens vistas which we haven't really thought about. And I welcome, whenever she speaks, I just enter into it and am bathed in an effusive torrent, really, of revelation, because that's what she brings. I'm very concerned about the ordinary women of the world who are stuck in the most banal consciousness, really, promoted by the media. And how are they going to get out of it? That's what I wonder about. What is going to lift them to a higher level? What is going to give them spiritual vision instead of staying in the lower three chakras where they are at the moment? What can lift them into the heart chakra? This is what the Buddha was trying to do 2,500 years ago. It's what Jesus was trying to do. I'm just working on a webinar on Christianity at the moment. And of course, the church missed the chance. They missed the teaching. So now we've got to rediscover the teaching. And this is what our work is all about. We've got to rediscover this divine indwelling self, which is connected to the divine ground. I call the divine ground the Holy Spirit, because this is what I'm working to bring back. And nobody knows that the Holy Spirit is feminine and always was until the Council of Nicaea. So that's something that could be brought back. But how? How can we bridge this huge gap between the consciousness of women in the world generally and the consciousness that women need to rise to? Because they won't be able to take in what Gina's been teaching us, because that is only really for, at the moment, for a few. So how are you going to reach the tens of millions of women who need to be lifted out of their subservience, really, to the values that they've been taught and to the society that they grow up in, which is entirely, through no fault of their own, it's male-oriented, because they have an education which is the same as men. They learn the language, they learn how to act in the world. They now know how to speak. And the last 2 generations have learned how to act and speak effectively in the world. We have many politicians, etc. But they're missing the spiritual element, except for very few women on the planet. So Jean, I would ask you, how can that be done?
All right, Anne, we start with you and your extraordinary books that get to the very heart of the radical need for the rising feminine. You inspire me profoundly, as well as so many others. And I, being a kind of world gadabout, I go and teach. I teach everywhere. And I teach in places of the types of people that you're talking about. And I teach in places where women are abused and unseen. And I teach them to teach others and teach them to teach others. That's all you can do, is to teach others. Lately, I have been gifted with a remarkable opportunity, which I will ask you to join in at some time. I happen to be chairman of the largest theater on Broadway. And from there, we're doing something that I've already been doing, streaming video, which can get people's iPhones, and of course about 3/4 of the human race has these iPhones. And we teach, and not just teach, but as I say, hands-on, sensory-rich things that people can begin to develop in community as among themselves in terms of their extraordinary potentials, to introduce them to not only the new vision of themselves, but the new practices, and then to go out and to do things concrete, existential in their own environments. We are living in not only an abundant time of awfulness, but an incredible larger abundance, what my Sicilian grandmother referred to as abundanza, an abundanza of opportunity, because we can touch out and reach so many, as you say, millions and millions of people. What I've been doing a lot in my life, I don't know how many there are, but there's a lot, judging by the fact that I get 1,000 emails a day, so I must be out there doing something. And then to encourage it. You know, one of my fields is social artistry, which is human development in the light of social need. How do we develop our minds, our bodies, our spirits? Well, we teach, and we reach out humbly, and also with a kind of merriment. Again, being the daughter of a comedian, I saw how, when I go into a culture, and of course I was trained by my spirit, well, I don't want to say spiritual mother, but certainly my psychological mother, who thought I was her adopted daughter, Margaret Mead, which opened up all these cultures to me. Now, so that you know, Peggy and I go out there and we do what we have to do, and we listen deeply. Years ago, I was asked by the Peace Corps to do something about these young people who were wonderfully intentioned, but not very effective. And I would go in and I would see them working in another culture saying, "Hello there, my little brown brother, let me show you the American way of doing things." And there went thousands of years, just, you know, so you teaching them to respect, to honor, and to learn from others. That's very important, as I know all of you do. So you do what you do where you can. I am blessed, well, I'm blessed to be able to have this opportunity for outreach. But people are intertwined. They are suffering more, but they're also becoming more and more available to the shift and the participation in this spiritual tide that is moving around the world, which all of us are feeling, and to dip your mind and your soul into that tide, and then somehow opportunities arise, synchronicities occur, and you find yourself in the right place with just the appropriate people, even if it's 2 or 3. Whether it's 2 or 3 or 2 or 3 million, doesn't make any difference. You've started the ripple. And therein you can, in the words of T.S. Eliot, redeem the time, redeem the unread vision of the higher dream.
Thank you, Jean. That's terrific. Inspiring.
Thank you so much, Jean. I feel it comes down to embodying these ideas and really living them, so that each and every one of us is truly living what is in our minds, that it's not just ideas. And the more we live it, the more of us live it, it's inspiring. It invites others, and it creates that energetic field, Jean, that you've been talking about. It expands that field. And then the synchronicities arise for this to grow even more. I'm going to now also ask our beloved Peggy Rubin to share with us some observations. Peggy will be with us in Madonna Rising in August. She will be leading the Sacred Theater. Peggy.
Thank you. It is a joy to be in the presence of Anne Baring and my dear and deeply loved and honored teacher, Jean, and you, Banafsheh, with your understanding that there is only the dance, and it is a dance of oneness. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the beautiful gifts at Chartres. I think of it as a place where we sink in down to that druidic level the sense that the ancient Celts had of the divine feminine continuously giving birth, as Jean has described the universe as being a continuously generous and creative force. And at Chartres, in the honor of the dark Madonna, the Black Madonna, and all the other aspects of the feminine that are so potent there. What my sense is that we gather not to embody the deeper teachings of that spiritual eros that Jean describes, to embody that and to hold the image and vision of it, the dream, if you will, Anne, of the cosmos, of allowing women all over the world, all over the universe, to know themselves as precious and alive and vital for the continuation and well-being of the earth and all life. And something happens at Chartres because it's been so many thousand years a place of centering devotion that I think, in a word, makes the women's movement sacred. And we go out from there determined to live as filled with honor and joy and aliveness, so that the world around us shifts, partly because we see it differently. We look upon beings with greater love because we've been there and we've seen the love that created that cathedral and the love of many generations even before that of people wanting to gather there, and the music and the bells and the art and the power. And somehow we come restored with the knowledge, yes, we can, to borrow a wonderful phrase of a great man. Yes, we can. And not only can we, but we will. And we have divine assistance in human form and in the invisible world. Now, I'm in love with the scientist who struggled with the problem that the universe is continuously expanding faster than they expected it to be, because it's supposed to be slowing down, and indeed it's going. So they have a problem, and they don't know how to solve the problem, but they gave the solution a name, and the name they gave it was dark energy and dark matter, and it makes up 95% of the universe. So all we can see is 5%, and I think that's true of us too, that we can only see 5%, and we can only see around us 5%, and goodness knows a lot of what we see is so unhappy and so heartbreaking. But there is a hidden force, a shaping force that we can somehow imaginatively align with and move into the world with a greater sense of hope and possibility and profound love for those all around us, men, women, and children who are hurting and lost. And we can do more. We can do more. And we've got help. That's the other thing. And we have joy. Thanks. That's all I know today is to say.
Thank you so much, Peggy. And we have each other. We have a community of amazing people who come. Thank you so much. I'm wondering if people have any questions. We're at the end of our call, but if there are any questions about our August intensive, Madonna Rising, and the pilgrimage afterwards, where we go to visit the Black Madonna and Mary Magdalene sites in southern France. And also, if you have any questions for the amazing Jean Houston. So I don't see any questions. I'm going to turn it over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Banafsheh. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, Anne. This has been a splendid banquet of powerful feminine voices, all dedicated in very unique but compelling ways to the feminine that's so deeply rooted and effervescent in Chartres. It's quite an extraordinary thing to go each year, as we have been for the past 14 years, to a site that probably more than any other site in the world is infused with an extraordinary feminine power. At a time when, as Jean was saying, the feminine is rising to lead. So this July we'll be there for Grammatica. We're going to be starting our third cycle of liberal arts. So we'll be starting with the first one, which is about grammar. It's about the word. It's about the foundation of the cosmos, the universe. And then we're going to go after that to the Dordogne, where we'll be having an experience, shamanic experience with the caves of Lascaux and the primordial prehistoric caves, which is really a representation of the origins of consciousness, human consciousness. And then in August, we'll be returning around the Feast of the Assumption, which celebrates Mother Mary ascending in bodily form to be the queen of both heaven and earth, and the mother of God, what Jung called the most momentous development in the 2,000 years of Christian history. And then after Madonna Rising, we'll be going down to the south of France, to Roc Amador, the site of the most holy of all the Black Madonnas in France, and then the sites associated with Mary Magdalene, who, as the history is being revealed through the Nag Hammadi texts and Gnostic documents, was actually seminal to the vitality and ministry of Jesus, and was catalytic in the rise of the early church. And you can sign up for both of these, both Grammatica in the Caves or Madonna Rising and Mary Magdalene. We're offering a discount, but it'll be a very, very potent time, whatever combinations you choose. So I want to thank everyone on this call, and I want to now turn it over to Apila. Apila had a few problems with her computer. She normally gives us our invocation. You may remember back last September, I indicated that Apila was retiring from Chartres. She had other things that were compelling her to complete, but she is now back and is rejoining Grammatica, and will be co-leading with me the pilgrimage down to the caves. So Apila, thank you so much for joining. And instead of giving us the invocation this time, Apila will give us the benediction and will bless us as we bring this call to a close. Apila?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I want to acknowledge that I'm here on the island of Maui, and I just was on the Big Island, and the Big Island is the home of Pele, the volcano goddess, and you may remember that she erupted about a year and a half ago, And before that time, there was a massive, massive plume that came out of the caldera, and at night it glowed lavender and blue and red and orange. And before that, going onwards to almost 30 years, lava at night would flow over a cliff like the Niagara Falls, just glowing. And as the lava hit the night air, it would growl and crackle. So it just sounded like this massive, gigantic life form was just coming directly at oneself. When the volcano exploded, 30 or 40 homes were burned and destroyed. The volcano erupted in 6, 7, 8 or more places. Just holes broke open in the earth as the lava flowed forward and eventually made its way into the ocean. And all of that destruction, it ends up creating miles and miles of new land on Big Island. So I want to acknowledge the primordial force that Jean and Peggy and Anne and Banafsheh are referring to, because we live right here on the newest land on the planet. So with that idea of renewal and the dark destructive part as we experience it of creation and of giving birth, I too went through that. Imagining that I would be able to retire and work on a book about our dream work at Chartres. But of course, life has other ways of working, and I'm not done yet. And I give thanks to Jim, and I give thanks to Banafsheh for your patience with me and helping me sort through, even at my age of, I'll be 73 in about 3 days, and thinking after 2 years or 2 rounds of Chartres that it was time to step back. Thank you for helping me to come forward again. And now I'm lighting this fire from the cedar of the hill of Chartres. And this cedar is dry, it's dead, but its fragrance is very much alive. Ancestors, great mother of this universe, great spirit. It's our Jistri Yahweh, Apila, and our Chartres community coming together at the beginning. Marking Grammatica, we assemble. In my own life, I come forward, taking the first step. Before manifestation, before sound, there is a movement, an embrace. The sun rises, touches the earth, and in the warmth of their lovemaking, clouds emerge. Between the worlds, they scuttle and soar and move, bringing life-giving rains to the earth, expressing that cosmic love that we all dance in. May our awareness of this dance, of this reality, inform our celebration of the ceremony of Grammatica. May this community assembling online through monthly calls truly become one in her. And for the opportunity to be with you, Great Mother, with the help of each other's love and the holding of hands and the courage in our hearts, we step forward to renew. Ah, Mama, Uanoa. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Apila, and happy birthday.
Yes, thank you.
Happy birthday. Thank
Yeah,
you.
for my birthday, I'm going to Zumba camp. I'm going for 3 days of instructor training. In case you guys don't all know it, on my 72nd birthday, I got certified as a Zumba instructor. Yeah. So more training.
Thank you. Again, Jean, thank you. Anne, Peggy, Banafsheh, Apila. beautiful to have these women's voices grace us
Mhm.
as we prepare for our return to the sacred site of Chartres. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.